I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. And I was almost going to say review, but this is not a review this time. This is a PayPal request from a very good guy, John the Zero Cool. Thank you so much for that. And I have mentioned that if anyone wants to request videos, it doesn't just have to be reviews. It could be also topics, and this is a topic. But if anyone ever wants to request anything, it could be either pretty much anything. Either by joining my Patreon or requesting it directly via my PayPal. The links are down below in the info box. If not, no worries, but if so, thank you. And he wanted to ask about movie stores, as in what happened. How come you don't really have much memorable movie stores now compared to back to the day? And even composers. There's not a lot of new composers that will reach even close to the pinnacles of a Jerry Goldsmith and a James Horner and a John Williams, and to the fact of new music composers, I can't even think of their names. But we know Jerry Goldsmith, we know John Williams, we know James Horner, we know Hans Zimmer. Why is that the case? Well, first off, before I answer that, movie stores are important to me when it comes to a movie. I think, yes, I can enjoy a film that doesn't have a great movie store, but it does help tremendously if the store is memorable, fits with the film. It could be, at times, the soul of a movie. That might seem pretentious and over the top to say, but you go through countless movies in the 80s and 90s. If I'm just talking about action or action sci-fi, I look at The Terminator. Remember Brad Fiddel's score. Da-da-da-da-da. Aliens. Remember James Horner. To me, his best score. Including Bishop's Countdown. That track. One of my favorite tracks in movie history when it comes to musical scores. When you look at or you listen to the score for First Blood and Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Jerry Goldsmith. When you listen to Predator, Alan Silvestri's score. Even to the 90s, I think the score to Cliffhanger is beautiful. But why do movie stores today? And there are exceptions to the rule. There's always exceptions to the rule. I thought the score to VFW was fairly good. It had a bit of a John Carpenter vibe to it. I thought the score, while not as good as the original score, Blade Runner 2049, I thought was a decent score. Again, not as good as Vangelis and Blade Runner, but a decent score. So there are exceptions, but a lot of these movies have scores that are fairly forgettable. They made how many Marvel films? I can't even remember a single score from a Marvel film. DC, maybe Man of Steel, Hans Zimmer. That's one good positive I could give a Man of Steel. Had a pretty good score. And there'll be scores that are serviceable. There'll be scores that fit the film or competent. But there's not a lot compared to back in the day that really stand out and be like, oh yes, that just, I need to listen to that. Back in the day, we would buy CDs. And before that, cassettes to just listen to soundtracks. I mean, this is about musical scores, but even soundtracks like Mortal Kombat, Rocky IV, and Over the Top. Let alone, which even that, real quick, one thing about soundtracks is that they don't really make soundtracks where they make songs specifically for a movie nowadays. Usually it's just, well, that song from the 80s, that song from the 70s, that song from the 90s, that song from the 80s, that song from the 80s. Okay, plug it. Maybe because of the success of Guardians of the Galaxy, then you hear that in Deadpool, you hear that in Birds of Prey. There's not a lot of... And then when they few times they do is some stupid fucking shit like Ghostbusters 2016 when let's do a new version of this. But I mean, I've always thought music sucks nowadays. I mean, I find it funny that I can't think of a new song that came out in the past 2 years, but I think a lot of people have that problem because they'll probably remember a song from back in the day more than a song in this year or last year's. So maybe that's part of why musical scores suck too, because the music has changed. And it's always weird talking about a topic like this because you decide like, oh, get off my lawn, back in my day. Old man yelling at the clouds. And hey, I am that. But also, I really do think there are folks out there, filmmakers, that don't put as much time into the music. Where, yeah, it's an important part, but they're more worried about special effects, they're more worried about their themes, they're more worried about their fucking brownie points, they're more worried about who they can impress. Oh, they can impress the SJWs, they can impress this crowd, that crowd. How do we make them? I'm more worried about, oh yeah, the music, yeah, that sounds good. But what's this theme here, and symbolism, and what can we do, what can we say? What white nice can we be today that we weren't yesterday? Sometimes I do feel that's one of the reasons. Composers. There's not a lot of composers that really just go for broke. I mean, to the point that what new composers can we really think of off the top of our head? Hans Zimmer. That's not a new composer. But we could think of the names of old composers. I mean, that does say something. Again, when I look at all these superheroes, 95% of these new superheroes, I can't think of their musical scores, even to films I like. I like Iron Man. I can't think of the score of Iron Man. I just remember the music, like the soundtrack. And then Iron Man 2, the AC/DC. But I can't remember the score. And I did a lot of films, they'll have scores that are fine, or they're competent, or they work for the film. But you don't hear a lot of scores that really try to go for, that really try to go for the moon. And this is going to sound stupid. I wonder if part of it is, you gotta remember back in the day, composers could get a lot more out of just their music. So they really wanted to impress people. What I mean by that is that, you gotta remember back in the day, they could sell their music on cassettes, CDs. So maybe in the back of their head they're thinking, or records, even before that, records. So maybe it's one of those things of, okay, I'm right here for a movie, but I gotta make sure this is really, really good, because I also gotta make sure that people will like it so much that they don't buy the record, they don't buy the CD, or they don't buy the cassette tape. So I hope they really, really enjoy it. Because if they really is memorable to them, they'll go out and they'll buy it. Or back in the days, to really prove it. Because let's face it, back in the day, people were more harsh on making a movie than nowadays. Nowadays, they, a lot of times people say, you okay, and, you alright. When it's a job, it's not supposed to be an easy job. Now people are pampered and the pussies are pampered, including the guys, their pussies are pampered. Back in the day, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, whether it be grueling hours in makeup effects and grueling hours on the set and doing takes and trying to get the fucking blood script to work. And back to the day, you just say, that fucking sucked. No, no, that didn't fucking, what are you fucking doing? No, don't do that. Now it's like, well, I don't want to hurt the guy's feelings. Hey, that's okay. That's fine. It's serviceable. Hey, you know what? Yeah, okay. We gotta do pats on the ass instead of doing our fucking jobs. I mean, to John, do I have a sincere 100% answer to that? I don't know either. That's a question I've asked myself many times. So I'm kind of just floundering here and giving bullshit reasons. But I do think some of that could be valid. That's what I'm saying. But do I have a definitive answer? No. But it's sad when I watch a movie, that is a big part of it. Where if you have a score that really enriches the image that you're watching on the screen, it makes for a better experience. A score for an action that gets your blood pumping and your adrenaline going. Or a horror score that really stays with you, whether it be Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Harry Manfredini and Friday the 13th. And maybe it's the way people were taught back in the day. Because I guarantee you, composers and people were taught different than how they're taught today. I guarantee you, back in the day when you talked to people like Bill Conti, who did Lock Up and the Rocky films, you look, Jerry Goldsmith, may rest in peace, my favorite composer. I love Jerry Goldsmith because he did the Rambo films, the first 3. He did Leviathan, which is a favorite of mine. Star Trek the Motion Picture, which is my favorite score in the Star Trek movies. He did King Solomon's Mines, which was good. Runaway, which was different and interesting. Supergirl, which was his version of Superman for the score. Jerry Goldsmith, I love. James Horner, yeah, he repeated himself, but Aliens is one of my all-time favorite scores. Bill Conti, I mentioned. Hans Zimmer, I love his score. I mean, from Broken Arrow, probably be my favorite score of his. But you listen to scores like Backdraft. James Horner, you listen to scores of Willow and Glory, and they really felt like they had something to prove. They really felt like something they had to either prove it to themselves or prove it to people in the business, or like a competition. And that's another thing, competition. Like back in the day when you looked at makeup effects, look at when makeup effects were big, they had competition. Oh, Stan Winston did that. Oh shit, okay Stan, you did that. Well, let me do this. Oh, okay, Rick Baker, you did that. Well, let me do that. I'm Tom Savini, I'm doing a different one. Oh, I'm Rob Bottin, I'm gonna do this with The Thing. Oh, you did John Carpenter's The Thing, okay. Let me do this. Maybe that was the way with composers too. Okay, Jerry, you did that. I'm gonna do this. Okay, John Williams, you did Superman. Well, I'm doing Supergirl, so let me do mine. And I want to be better. Whether you think it's not, okay, but still a great score. Like John Williams' Superman theme is the best of Superman. But Supergirl's score is really good. Whatever you think about the film, Jerry Goldsmith's score is really damn good. So it just... again, it could be a lot of things where nowadays you don't have competition between composers. There's really no new composer you can even think of and name. Maybe they just put in it, they get the check, they do it, they leave. There's not maybe a lot of hard-hitting. Do you think of some of the scores? They were done in extreme situations. Just look at the making of Aliens and how that score, one of the best scores ever in my opinion, was done with James Cameron, and James Cameron was under distress and duress and just so much stress, and yet he came out with a fantastic score. And that's always the case, but Star Trek the Motion Picture, Jerry Goldsworth would tell about how he had a different music that he wanted to do. And if you see the making of a Star Trek the Motion Picture, it sounded fine. And then the director said, no, I want this, this, and this. And Jerry Goldsworth was like, but he changed it. And to me, it was better. It sounded better with the way the director wanted it. And maybe there's directors that don't do that. Because we don't want to hurt feelings. We don't want to hurt your feelings. You're not hurting your feelings. You're doing a job. That's what they get paid to do, the job. You can still do it and not hurt feelings. One does not negate the other. Maybe just with songs sucking today, that influences score sucking today. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And some of the scores just sound same. One compared to the other, you can barely tell the difference. Yeah, I can't give you a definitive answer. I'm just spitballing here, but yeah, I don't think you'll ever get better. I think once in a while you get a score that's pretty decent. I think you get scores that are competent or okay. But yeah, I can't think of many new composers that are just, oh wow, I can't wait till what that person does next. I can't think of any. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking it's hard even come up with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just repeating myself here, but yeah. Musical scores, I think, is a very important aspect of a movie. I think there's some people that don't realize that. They don't realize just how important it is to a movie, how it can really shape a film, how it can really, hell, you can have a shitty scene but have a great score to make the scene be better. That's the importance of music. Because the music can make you feel things. You hear it and it makes you feel a certain emotion. It's an important part, and I think there are some people that just don't realize that, even though they should. Hell, I'm wearing a Days of Thunder Mellow Yellow hat. You know, there's a Days of Thunder thing over here. You can't see it, but that score is great. I like Days of Thunder, but the score is a big important part of that. I think that was also Hans Zimmer, one of his more underrated scores. And you just don't have that nowadays. It's too bad. But anyway, thanks for the request. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.